Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my semi-regular program. Speaking moistly with me today is my semi-regular guest host, John Carpy. Sir, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm well. Glad to be with you and all your viewers and listeners.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was actually an internet outage this morning, so we weren't able to stream on X this morning, but X is back, so it's good. It'll be more broad viewership. Lots of stuff has happened since the last time we talked. You and I have chatted about. It's been about a month. I'd say about maybe a month and a half. And at the time, Carney had gotten nothing done. He promised a lot, but hadn't gotten anything done. And people were kind of looking to see, oh, will this government fall? When's the budget going to come? Looks like we're spending an awful lot of money. And Chrystia Freeland left her position as finance minister because of the high deficit that she was going to be forced to introduce by Justin Trudeau and his bad budget. And that deficit is now double, not to speak of our actual debt. And it seems like there's a lot of social programs, digital identification, diversity, equity, and inclusion crap tied all in there with a really high debt, a really high deficit. It doesn't seem like there's much good about this budget that passed today. It doesn't look like there's much good that the Liberals have done, despite promising the world prior to the election in April. What are your feelings on the budget and what it kind of hangs around our neck? What are we in for, do you think? Are we going to have a police? There was a viral video you had, police state by Christmas. Do you think we're going to have a police state by Christmas?
Well, if the House of Commons passes bills C2, C8, and C9, then we'll be on, having a police state by Christmas, yes, or depending on how severe the powers that be want to make it. I mean, you can pass a bad law and then kind of take it easy and go soft, for a while and just wait for 3 or 6 or 9 months. So I don't want to get into I don't want to predict the specifics. The budget, I've never understood why some people think it's okay to just take on more and more debt. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So if your family income, if your household income, let's say that your after-tax income for the family is $7,000 per month after tax, okay? You can, if you want to, you can spend $7,500 a month and go $500 into debt every month. And initially, it's not going to cause you that much damage, especially if it's debt that is not on a credit card, right? But it's just maybe it's through a line of credit or something. But if you keep on doing this, if you keep on bringing home $7,000 a month after tax, that's your income, and you're spending $7,500, or what if you spend $9,000 or $10,000 a month, right? Now your debt grows, and then you get your debt servicing costs. So where we're at right now, the debt servicing costs, so what we're paying on interest on the debt is about $55 billion per year. It's close to the same amount as the GST. So think about that. Every time you pay GST, and I know in Ontario you've got a harmonized sales tax, so it's GST's mixed in with your provincial, but every time you pay GST, that's not paying for any government programs or services, not national defense, not healthcare, not education, not seniors, not veterans, nothing. It's purely interest on debt, $55 billion a year. So what they've done with this budget, running a $78 billion deficit, that pushes every Canadian man, woman, and child $2,000 further into debt. And you might say, well, what's the big deal, taking on an extra $2,000 worth of debt? Well, you're already at $37,000 of debt for every man, woman, and child. So now you're going to take on an additional $2,000 and bump it to $39,000 instead of $37,000. It's just, to me, it's just and this isn't a partisan issue. I mean, the Harper ran deficits as well for most of the 9 years, but they were a lot smaller. Chrétien and with Finance Minister Paul Martin, they balanced the budget for a while, right? So this is not a partisan attack, but it just, to me, it's just foolishness and stupidity to incur all of this debt.
Yeah, well, it just seems like bad policies, like the debt is underpinning bad policies and bad bad actions by the government that will make it more difficult, bigger headwinds for us to get things done. Like, it seems like a priority for Mr. Carney is trade with China, where trade with America can wait. If it never gets done, well, that's Donald Trump's fault. And it seems disingenuous.
Well, you got to know who you're dealing with. And most people would agree, whether they like Trump or hate Trump, that he's got a thin skin and a big ego. And
I would disagree. I would disagree. No, I would disagree with that. I think Canada has acted. I think we have acted in a very, like, Canada as a country have acted in a petulant way. We've behaved like a child. We have done things that the United States has not done. We have levied things. We have done things in bad faith over and over and over again to the United States. We don't put up anything that Donald Trump has asked for. I don't think that Donald Trump has asked for much vis-a-vis what he's given and what, if you look at the rest of the world, the deals they have, I think Canada has a good deal. And I think Donald Trump has been thin-skinned is not how I would describe him, despite everything that's happened.
I was going to tie this in with the video advertising, quoting Ronald Reagan. So the Ontario government ran ads in the United States, exalting the virtues of free trade and quoting former U.S. President Ronald Reagan as saying that free trade is a good thing. It benefits everybody. Tariffs are bad and just cause poverty and, create lower living standards for people. So the Ontario government ran these ads, and at that point, Donald Trump, this is what I was getting at with the big ego and thin-skinned, is they should have, whether that's true or not, they should have thought through the consequences of running these ads. They offended him.
But it wasn't even,
and you could,
sorry, go ahead, finish up.
Well, you could make the argument that Donald Trump should not have gotten upset over those ads. But what I'm trying to get at, my point is this: you got to think about your consequences of your actions. So here the Ontario government runs political ads in the United States when there are some electoral races going on in some states, criticizing Trump policies, quoting Ronald Reagan. Okay. Trump responds by saying, I'm done. I'm not talking to Canada about anything anymore. Canada's going to the back of the line. We're going to talk with another,
everybody else.
Yeah. We're going to talk to other countries first.
Yeah.
So my point is that they should have thought through, what would the impact be of running these ads? Would that really help Canada?
Yeah.
They could have figured out, if they thought about it, they could have figured out that maybe Trump would have responded by saying, you know what, guys, we're done. Not talking to you anymore.
Oh, yeah. It's certainly, that's why it seems to me like they're trying to sabotage this. But also further, the ad itself was a misrepresentation of the overall speech that Reagan was giving. Reagan had used tariffs and was saying that he didn't want tariffs the way they were used in the 1930s because that caused economic hardship, but that using tariffs for national security was an important tool in the president's tool chest and he would use it responsibly. That was the push of that whole speech. And that's why Trump got so mad, was because they misrepresented that speech, that whole, like, if you listen to the whole speech, that's what Reagan was saying. Like, I use them for national security, which is why Trump fixated on national security after the fact. But there was a Supreme Court decision that could have gone either way, and he was going to make sure it went the way he wanted because he was going to say national security overrides anything that you guys are saying, like basically F off. But fundamentally, Reagan agreed with Trump or Trump agreed with Reagan and the execution of tariffs for national security. Whether it actually is national security is up for debate, I suppose. But if presidents say that, like, what are you going to do? And same back in Canada, too. If they say, national security, they black out how much they spend on luxury planes and limousines and stuff for national security these days, right? So it's just, I like to, it's easy to blame Donald Trump because everybody blames Donald Trump. And I think that's escapism because Canadians and Canada and bad policy are to blame for where we are right now. And we just watched bad policy get passed. And it seems like, again, and I want to talk more the legal aspect of things, but it seems like when I'm watching that House, I said yesterday on my show that the budget would pass. I didn't know exactly the details of how the budget would pass, but I thought that the budget would pass. And I mean, the NDP is broke. Everybody hates the Liberals. Poilievre's kind of wishy-washy. Nobody wants an election, but an election is necessary to clean out the rot. But it just seems like a little bit of inside baseball. Seems like, oh, I don't know, we're not going to an election, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Two abstentions from the CPC and the NDP. It just feels to me like more bad policies, an excuse for more bad policies. And I wish we had people fighting for us in the House of Commons. And it doesn't seem like we do.
When you talked about blaming Trump, it reminded me of something from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. Came out a long time ago. It was a bestseller. It's a great book. It's the kind of book you could probably reread it, once every 10 years.
Yep.
It's got a lot of good principles and insights. One of the things he says is when you're blaming somebody else
mm-hmm.
for your problems, that is the problem. So the first step is to assume responsibility, which doesn't mean that you don't recognize that you could be dealing with a bad actor, bad player who's doing bad things. That's all well and good,
mm-hmm.
but you assume responsibility by saying, okay, well, what can I do right now in this situation? Easier said than done. I don't pretend to be practicing the 7 habits of highly effective people, but it's something to strive for. So if somebody's running around, it's all the bad stuff's caused by Trump. Look, even if there's a kernel of truth in that, and even if he is doing bad things, you can't walk in this victim mentality of, oh, well, I'm just a victim of Donald Trump. There's
mm-hmm.
nothing I can do about it. It's like, no, you have to think about, okay, so what do I do? And I challenge people a lot of Canadians paint themselves as the victims of the local school board that's got a lot of green-haired and blue-haired people pushing transgender ideology on kids. I said, oh, we're such victims of this evil school board that's harming our children. It's like, no, you're not. Like, roll up your sleeves and run for office. And if you might fall flat on your face the first time and you might come in 7th place or 13th place, well, pick yourself back up, go at it again. You now have experience, which is valuable. You're better at running a campaign. Like, if you don't like your school board, then replace them. And that might take, more than one election cycle to get that done because they've got typically a lot of union money and they're well entrenched.
Well,
But
so do you know
thing about blaming?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's one of those. So our elections are rigged. I don't mean to. They're just. I have to say it on the nose. Our elections are rigged, and they're rigged in a multitude of ways. They're rigged by money being involved in the elections, by Bell and Rogers being allowed to deny advertisers, which happened to Faith Goldie, and I think it happened to Poilievre, but I'm not 100% sure. There were other races, happened to Bernier for sure. There were advertisements removed regarding immigration in the 2019 election and the 2018 run-up to that. All sorts of rigged election shenanigans. And I ran for school board in 2019. I worked in school boards. I was a union steward and negotiated contracts at the Hilton in 2012 against Kathleen Wynne's government. I was there. I was at the Hilton that year doing that stuff. I worked in school boards I worked in schools as a child and youth worker with difficult to work with children. For 15 years, I did that job. And I ran for school board. I'm an ideal candidate. I'm a parent of children attending the schools, not for much longer, but I am in the community. I've been in the community. I'm an ideal candidate. The ETFO, do you know the history of the ETFO in Ontario?
They failed to defend Matt and Nicole Alexander,
yes,
who are
right.
clients of the Justice Center,
right.
who got wrongfully terminated.
Absolutely.
And the union did nothing to help them.
Nothing at all.
That union's a disgrace.
Oh, it's all of them are, though. All of them are. They are all toadies to the government. And so this is a rigged game. The ETFO is the most prolific election machine in Ontario. They get 70 to 80% of their candidates elected. This is a system where I did this, I have experience with this. I was on the PIC committee, the Parent Information Committee, PIC. I was on this committee, and there was another French language French language committee. And so I was on this committee. We met monthly or bi-monthly or something like that. And in 2020, they abolished the committee because of COVID, but they abolished the committee after they sent out an email calling everybody racist. All white people were racist. And I was like, hey, hold on. I worked at that school board in the year 2000 to 2002 or 3. No, 2000 to 2002, I guess. So there was a year and a half of school, like the school year is wonky, right? So you get into another year. So I worked at that school board. In order to hire me, they had to have a blind resume, meaning my name couldn't be attached to the resume. They couldn't know if I was male or female. They couldn't know my age. They couldn't know anything about me. They had to just look at my resume and judge me on the resume. So they sent this whole email, fast forward 20 years later, this whole email calling the board practices racist. I have firsthand experience that is false. So I emailed them back and I said, hey, that's not true. And here's the proof that that's not true. I got an email back from the board saying that I was violating everybody else's privacy because I responded all, because we were all included in this everybody's racist email from the Upper Grand District School Board, by the way, just in case anybody's not sure of which school board specifically that I'm talking about. I have this well documented. The whole thing is documented on video, most of it. Anyway, the school board said that I was violating everybody's privacy by responding all. Then they removed the committees I was on, multiple committees I was on. I had meetings with the director of education. I've had meetings all the way up to, and I've tried to have a meeting with every single education minister in Ontario since 2018. Every single one of them has blackballed me. You cannot get a meeting with a minister in Ontario about anything, full stop, period, but especially about education. So I have experience, oodles of experience in this. And there are parents who are trapped by their education system and the fact that they don't have extra time. They can't pull their kids out. So I have a lot of sympathy for those parents. I apologize, but it was possibly a bad example to use. But I have experience in this. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So are you saying people should just give up and quit and not do anything?
No, I think the school board should be abolished.
Things are inevitably terrible and they're just going to get worse.
The school boards are pretty bad. I mean, they're under the guise of saying we're protecting kids, they are cutting parents out and indoctrinating kids into transgender ideology. You know this.
I get that, but
what are parents supposed to do?
Right. Are you saying that good people should not? Are you saying that good people should not run for office and we should just kind of wash our hands of it and not bother? I think people will.
Yeah. I think that, yes. I think, we're seeing the UK expanding voting into high schools and wanting 16-year-olds to vote. I think as people check out of a system that doesn't actually reflect because people aren't voting for the destruction of this country, but that's what's happening. The people in power keep telling us lies while they continue to destroy the country. They get budgets passed. They don't do anything. They get reelected. They don't do any of the promises that they say they're going to do. As people realize our votes and our elections mean nothing, they'll check out of the system. But it's a Ponzi scheme. It doesn't matter. In the United Kingdom, in Ireland, they blocked, what's his name? Conor McGregor from running. There's another person who they blocked from running. There's a pathway to run for president through council, and basically a popular presidential candidate would be able to, like a Trump-like figure would be able to get in and run for president directly if they wanted to. There were two people who were trying to do that in the last Irish election. The Irish said no. The French election, Le Pen was removed. She's not allowed to run for office. The British election, look at what they've done to Nigel Farage. Now he's in the House of Lords right now, and he's slated to be the next prime minister, but who knows? But a whole bunch of movements. Look at what's going on in Germany. A whole bunch of movements. There was another one in Europe where there was a president, not France. It was starts with an S, I think. But there was another president, and he was removed.
You know what? I could join you and give you. I could join in and give you, a whole list of bad things going on. But are you saying that people should just just withdraw from participation in the democratic process, and people should just all stop voting, and then what?
I think people should understand the game.
Are things going to magically turn around? What do you advocate for? What do you advocate for if you think that people should not be running for school board or supporting good candidates for school board, municipally,
But you can't
federally,
win.
provincially, if we shouldn't be,
You
if
can't
we're
win.
not supposed to be active in the democratic process, then
I didn't say
what
that.
should we do? Oh, okay.
So fundamentally, I think
But when
that,
you say that the system is rigged,
yeah.
you're to me that what that sounds like is don't get involved in politics.
No, I think that people get involved in politics thinking that they can make a change, and they don't understand how rigged the game is. It's like getting into a baseball game and not understanding that the game is, if the game is rigged, and not understanding the game is rigged, and then getting upset that you only get one out and the other team gets three, right? Like that's
So
the
you
problem.
should, but so you're saying people should or should not be
People,
actively involved in the
okay,
democratic
so
process?
if you get involved in the democratic process and you add weight to a rigged game by your participation, I think they should not participate. But if you understand what the game is and you are trying to demonstrate that you do not want to participate in this rigged game, then you should participate. An example, the truckers said this game is, we're not going to have success going through the regular channels. And so this game is rigged. If we want a movement on this thing, we need to go in this direction, and it's not go and win seats, go and run for school board, go and run for MPs, go and run for MPPs. They decided that's a rigged game. That's not fast enough. That's not going to do what we need. We're going to bring direct action to Ottawa, and we're going to have our grievance aired that way. And so they understood, maybe they didn't say this is a rigged game, but fundamentally they didn't play the game you're advocating for. They didn't play the democracy game.
No, there wasn't.
And they went to Ottawa and they scared the hell out of everybody there, because not one of them works for Canadians. Not one of them. They all work for globalist apartics who put them in their place, who put them there. They owe where they are to the people who place them. And so they have fealty to those people and not to the Canadian citizens. That's what I feel is going on. And I feel like if people go in there and honestly, genuinely try to play the game thinking it's like the 1990s or the 1980s, and I was a child then, so I don't know if the 1990s and the 1980s were legitimately above board as far as democracy goes, but that's the story we were told then, right? But if then it was fake too, then everybody participating in that propagated the lie. We should stand up and say, this is a rigged game. This is a rigged sport. And we need to either have a fair game or no game. We need to actually change things, because what's going on is a rigged game.
So you're going to somehow stop it from being rigged by not electing anybody from, let's say, our side, okay, which is a bit of a vague term, but if whatever.
All of the people who are in office right now.
Let me finish. How, if this game is rigged, then how do you unrig it without electing?
You start arresting people
from our side.
Our side doesn't exist. You start arresting people. All of the people who are currently in charge.
Who does the arresting? Do you and I go up to some member of parliament?
We have laws. I agree. No, I understand.
Let me speak for a second.
Yeah.
You and I go to the House of Commons and you say, all of these 343 MPs, they're all bad guys. None of them are any good. We arrest one of the MPs and we lock him up and put him on trial, or do we arrest the Prime Minister and put him on trial? Like,
sure, we could.
You just said, well, we should just arrest people. Like,
we should.
If you try to arrest anybody, you're liable to face criminal charges and get locked up yourself.
Well, I'm not saying that I would. I'm not saying. Hold on. I'm not saying I would go and arrest people. So we have a situation where we found out from CSIS years ago now that all of our governments since Mulroney have been compromised by China. We have laws against that, I'm pretty sure. So we should arrest people based on violations of those laws regarding working for other countries instead of working for our country. Hold on, let me finish. I'm not quite done. COVID happened and there has not been any accountability. There hasn't been any accountability whatsoever. In fact, nothing has been examined. There were people in positions of power, and I know because I saved those tweets, I reported on those tweets, I called those people out at the time and I lost my YouTube channel. They censored me then, and nobody believed that I was being censored. And it's true. It's been borne out, and I'm telling you, it's a rigged game, and you can dismiss that, but that's fine. The COVID situation happened. the elected officials became pharmacare salespeople, which is not their job. They locked people down, which is not their purview. They destroyed the economy and by printing money, which they should not have the ability to do if they're going to cause so much damage. And nobody, not one person, has been held accountable. Justin Trudeau,
not yet.
Not yet, not ever. Justin Trudeau, before all of the COVID stuff, interfered in Jody Wilson-Raybould's ability to prosecute SNC-Lavalin for a deferred prosecution agreement. Justin Trudeau, it was the quintessential, he broke the law, he interfered in something that he's not supposed to interfere with. This is like ABC, and I can't remember the name of the darn thing that he did, but ABC, nobody's been held accountable. Nobody will ever be held accountable.
Well, not yet.
Nobody,
not yet,
no,
Mark,
but that's the point. That's what I'm saying. The criminality, that's from 2018. The criminality keeps going. Nobody here, like, do you hear Pierre Poilievre? Do you hear anybody at all talking about holding anybody accountable? They're looking forward. They don't want to talk about backwards because they were there and they were silent.
So, yeah, it sounds to me like you're just spreading despair and defeatism. Like,
I want people to understand the game we're playing.
Let me tell you what I'm hearing. I hear you say things are really bad and they'll probably get worse, and there's nothing we can do about it. Maybe you're not saying that. That's what I'm hearing, because you talk about you talk about so many issues, so many bad things going on. For every bad thing that you mention, whether it's the lockdowns, the vaccine mandates, the influence of communist China on Canadian politics, for every bad thing, I say, well, unless we elect better people to address the problem, how do you bring about change? And if it's not through being active in the democratic process, I don't know. I'm not following. I don't get what your point is. Like, I'm kind of hearing you say, when you say it's rigged, so we shouldn't bother trying to be active.
No, we should be aware.
Municipally.
We should be aware it's a rigged game.
Okay, so people get more aware. What's the use of awareness by itself? Awareness is worthless.
Do you think,
unless it's put into action? If it's not put into engagement into the democratic process, what's the point?
Do you think that people, if they were kept in the dark about the NBA's rigged games and the rigged betting action for basketball, if they were kept in the dark, they would keep betting? And now that people know about it, fewer people are betting. So what I'm saying is, if we elect people, if we play their game, if we play the game of democracy as it's been rigged in their favor, Justin Trudeau put together a debate commission. The debate commission had we guys on it, the guys from the We Charity, and it had another partisan person.
The Justice Center provided lawyers.
Yeah, right. Like all of these things, things are different ways. I know you won in court because it's illegal what they're doing, but each illegal thing is another layer of rigging things. And what I want people to understand, you think that I'm spreading despair, and I want you to understand that it's not despair. It's not despair that I'm trying to spread. It's information. The more information you have, the more powerful you have. And an example, again, if you're a betting person and you think you're betting on a straight game in an NBA game and you find out that the refs are all rigging it, now things are different for you, right? Same with NFL, because it's happening in NFL, and the same with our elections. But nobody talks about it because it's some kind of, you're not allowed to talk about it, but it is happening. Same thing in the NBA, same thing in the NFL. These things are happening and it changes the outcome fundamentally. So until people are read in on what's going on and why when they vote for X, they get Y instead, until they understand that, nothing will change, because you can't put in place people who have been who already sold out during COVID, already sold out during SNC-Lavalin, already sold out during the truckers, already sold out back in to fix things. They broke this. They broke it. It used to work. They broke it.
You get, different elections do produce different outcomes. You look at the United States. Imagine if Hillary Clinton
it's rigged there
had
too.
Beaten Donald Trump. Let me finish. Imagine if Hillary Clinton had beaten Donald Trump in 2016, or imagine if Kamala Harris had beaten Donald Trump in 2024. Right? Whether you think that would have been a better outcome or a worse outcome, I think most people would have to agree that the public policies would be very different. Who gets appointed to the Supreme Court? What is the foreign policy? What is the trade policy? What is the taxation levels? What's the government's approach on the transgender ideology? Like on and on and on and on. So people can debate whether Harris versus Trump 12 months ago, whether the outcome would have been better the other way or not. We can debate that, but there's huge differences. In Alberta, we had Jason Kenney, who is a human rights violator and who misled the public on a daily basis for years on end by grossly exaggerating COVID, comparing it to the Spanish flu of 1918. The same lies that were told by, or maybe I should say the false statements. I don't know if maybe they were sincerely saying what they believe to be true. Anyway, so people got fed up with that. So a lot of people took out a membership in the Jason Kenney's political party, which was the United Conservative Party. I think it was thousands of people, certainly hundreds, but probably thousands of people took out memberships. And they forced this leadership vote, this leadership review, and Jason Kenney got 51%, which is an abysmal showing when your own party members, right? If you don't, for these leadership review votes for a party leader, you want, 70, 80% support. So he was forced out of office and was replaced by a premier who's very different. Yeah, it's debatable. Some people would say that she's terrible and she's awful.
Not that different.
But nobody can disagree. Nobody can disagree that she's a very different premier than what Jason Kenney was.
In some ways.
How she's handling issues. Yeah. Very different. So I agree with you that people need to get better informed, but once everybody gets better informed, are they still supposed to stay out of politics and not get involved? Because when you do that, you just leave it. You make it easier for the bad guys to win.
The society is encouraged to not talk politics. Our society is taught, don't bring up religion, don't talk politics. That's what you're taught. People roll their eyes when I bring up politics.
To that.
No, I know, but it is a societal nudge, as we were going to talk about, but we didn't talk about really. It's a societal nudge. What they do is they say, don't let your Uncle Frank talk about politics. If he starts bringing up Pierre Poilievre or Maxime Bernier, then you roll your eyes and go, and oh my gosh, we can't talk about Donald Trump, right? If you bring up Donald Trump, oh my gosh, we can't talk about Donald Trump. It's a poison pill. And so like what I'm trying to do with my show and the way I talk about politics, when I say it's a rigged game, I want people to understand that they're not playing a straight game. And what I want them to do is to come to their own conclusions about what's going on. I don't want them to listen to me, and I don't want to tell them how to participate in democracy. I participate in democracy like a bull running at a matador sometimes, right? And it's one of those things where I feel very ineffective. And the reason I feel very ineffective, in my opinion, is because the game is a rigged game. And you were talking about Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. And I think that Donald Trump represents a very different kind of politician than Harris or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or hold on, I just want to make my point. So like if you had Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama, I would say the policies would be much more closely matched. We don't actually get an option. The Obama or Romney, they're basically going to do the same thing. Obama famously said, steering a government's like steering a cruise ship. It's very slow, takes a long time, movement's slow, right? You don't get a lot of difference regardless of the president in charge. Trump came in and put an outrigger motor on the cruise ship and turned it 90 degrees in 10 minutes. So I don't know what's true, but it seems like there is something to a uniparty. People say there's a uniparty working, and I think I can clearly see a uniparty operating in Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, United Kingdom, Canada, yeah, and a lot of states as well. A lot of states, a lot of blue states, and federally the United States under Obama, under Romney, under Hillary Clinton, they have politicians in their pocket. Right. And I look at it and I'm just, I don't have a lot of faith in our institutions because of what happened with COVID and because nobody's been held accountable and because nobody in our political class is interested in having that conversation.
Well, nobody's been held accountable yet. There's a very good reason for that. You've only got a minority of Canadians who understand that the lockdowns were unjustified human rights violations, that they were not rooted in science, that they were not rooted in science or medicine. And I've often been asked, why has nobody been held to account, or when will this happen? My answer is, when you get to a point where 90% of Canadians, or even 80, 70, 60% of Canadians, 50% of Canadians, where you have enough people who understand that these lockdowns were human rights violations, that they were not justified, they were not supported by science, that it was completely wrong to pressure people into getting vaccinated. The reason you need that majority is because if you only got, let's say it's 1/3, okay, I don't know what the number is, but let's say it's a third of Canadians today who recognize that the lockdowns and mandatory vaccination policies were human rights violations, and that it was criminal conduct on behalf of certain individuals and leadership that pushed this, okay? You've only got a third. The police aren't going to charge anybody. The prosecutors who make a decision after the criminal charges are laid, the prosecutors decide whether it's going to move ahead or not. So if the police, the prosecutors, the judges, the medical establishment, the legal establishment, they don't yet understand that these were serious human rights violations. Therefore, you're not going to get anybody being charged or prosecuted or punished. However, when you get to a point where 50% or 90% or 70% of Canadians understand that these were egregious human rights violations, then that's going to trickle up into the police and the crown prosecutors and the judiciary,
but those institutions are captured. Like, those institutions have a vested interest because of the decisions they've made over the last few years. They have a vested interest in keeping the status quo.
We should just give up and quit and just.
No, we have to know the game we're playing. We have to understand. I think we should no, we have to know the game we're playing. I think in order to fix it, we have to abolish the judiciary.
But once people know the game, and once people know the game and have the information, are they supposed to then be active in the democratic process, or they're supposed to just sit back and watch and say the game?
The democratic process.
Are they supposed to say it's rigged?
No, they're supposed to come to their own conclusions. But again, there are many instances where I think I've demonstrated clearly, just in this last 20 minutes where we've been talking, that there are forces in play. I mean, just look at the Coots guys. Like, you've been looking at a lot of these judicial things, and they don't follow reason or common sense. They follow ideology. And so when you have an ideological judiciary, and you come in and you say, like, I'm going to paraphrase what you were saying with regards to nobody.
I just don't understand what what is your plan of action?
My plan. If you come into the judiciary and you say this person broke the law, and they did break the law, like the Prime Minister broke the law interfering in SNC-Lavalin, and so this person broke the law, and they did break the law, and the law now depends on people believing that the law was broken than person violating the written down code of the criminal code. Like, that's when you say it's not rigged, and then you say the judges and the prosecutors and everything need to believe that a crime's happened in order for them to move forward. I say there's an easy place for it to be rigged, even if a crime has occurred, right? And so that's why the Prime Minister can get away with interfering in SNC-Lavalin, and nothing has happened to him, because no prosecutor would bring such a case, because the government is above the law. Is that fundamentally what it is? Because if that's true, which is what you were just saying, the whole thing's fucking rigged. It's a rigged fucking game. So why should I participate in it? If it's rigged, why should I participate? It has nothing to do with me, this rigged system. Screw it.
Well, if all the people who supported Trump in 2016 or 2024, 2016 when he beat Hillary Clinton, and 2024 when he beat Kamala Harris, if they'd all said, "Oh, the system's rigged," and stayed home, he wouldn't have won those two elections in 2016 and 2024. He won those elections because enough people came out to vote. And so, it's all well and good to spread information and educate people and change the culture. I've always advocated for that. Why? Because law follows politics, politics follows culture, culture follows education. So if we can educate our fellow citizens into having a greater appreciation for the free society and for the idea that government should be our servant and not our master, if we can get that cultural change, that will trickle into the politics, which will trickle into the law.
Maybe.
But so I agree. I agree on spreading. I agree on educating people. I agree on spreading information on changing the culture. I agree on that. But once that's done, apart from being involved, it is the elected federal, provincial, municipal people that are making the rules, and sooner or later, you've got to engage in that process, because if you don't,
but they don't engage with you.
As the old French proverb goes, if you don't do politics, politics will be done unto you.
Yes, but they're creating a situation where a school board is a good example, where I have tried for years and I have the communications to back it up. I have emails, ignored emails, responded to emails,
I believe you.
but years. So,
you.
but like it's one of those things where it sounds like you're saying you just have to keep trying, and I'm saying to you, I have a decade of trying. I've done 8 years of documenting the decade of trying that I've been doing. I ran for federal office. I ran for school board. I have tried, and I am not a slouch, right? Like I put together a whole bunch of other interesting things too. I've done a whole bunch of things that have been worthwhile, but every bit of time I've put into trying to fix this country or trying to come in and help bring policies that make sense, I've been blocked. And it's not a situation. They censor my show too. And they say, and they don't want you to talk, they don't want people to talk about being censored, like the creators to talk about being censored. So they make it like, oh, you're not as good as you think you are, and that's why you don't get the numbers that you say. I know that I'm censored. Like without a shadow of a doubt, I know that I'm censored. So what's going on is when people tell me you're wrong, or when people tell me that like, oh, you don't get it, I'm just 5 years ahead of where other people are, because I don't have the mental blocks to stop me from considering that maybe all these institutions are completely corrupt. Maybe the CCP is way more prevalent here than people think. Maybe it's way more prevalent in every level of government than people think. And maybe it's not even just the CCP. Maybe it's a whole lot of other interests as well, Khalistani and further. And so I would like to believe in these institutions. I would like to believe it, but if
you don't have to believe
but
in the institution as such.
But I don't
just
believe
saying
it. If I get done for jaywalking, they're going to throw me in the gulag, just like they did to the Coots guys, just like they did to Tamara Lich, or they're trying to do Tamara Lich and Chris Barber and all the other, and Pat King and all these other people. They have a list and they want to put those people in jail. And if you sneeze the wrong way, they'll get you. And they're trying to change the laws now in order to give them a pathway to getting the people that maybe they couldn't get before. And so in like that context, it is a situation where the laws, the institutions are working against people who are trying to save what they think is their country. But I don't think it is anymore. I think it's a globalist post-national state, and that's damn unfortunate.
Well, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. So I'm a believer that, as I mentioned a minute ago, that there's the old French proverb, if you don't do politics, politics will be done unto you. And it is if we're not engaged in the democratic process, if we're not involved, if those
they
of us
aren't either.
Who love truth, if those of us who love truth and justice and freedom, if we just say, oh, it's all rigged, we're not gonna be involved in politics.
I think we should have a pair.
Easier. Let me finish. That makes it so much easier for those who do not love truth and justice and freedom to just have their way, and they can have a cakewalk. They can just waltz into office without any opposition, without any obstruction. And this is not personal to you. I disagree with anybody who says that we should not be engaged in the democratic process.
But I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we should go functionally. What I'm saying is we should look at this rigged baseball game, this rigged basketball game that we're watching, that we're not allowed to play in, or if we are allowed to play in, we're sitting on the bench.
And figure out ways to change it.
No, and walk away from these effing criminals and start our own basketball game somewhere else, and stop playing with them, stop feeding their machine, because what's happening is we can't fix it. I don't think we can fix it, because the government and the judiciary and everything else is stacked on the other side. And they're already starting to bring out laws to undermine anybody who's saying that man can't be a woman, or what else is not allowed to be said in Canada these days. Christian churches are being burned. There's all sorts of stuff that the speech is framed in such a way that you're being hateful. And so if you're being hateful, you're Islamophobic if you do this, you're anti-Semitic if you say this. And what these phrases do is turn the problem from something you can identify and say, listen, we don't want this call to prayer blasted in the morning. And instead of saying, okay, we'll deal with that complaint, now you're Islamophobic and the call to prayer is not being addressed, but your racism, quote, racism is. And so in that way, they turn laws against the citizens. And in that way, our voice, our ability to affect change, if we identify an issue that we want to change, is undermined and undercut in a very above board kind of way.
Well, you see change on Bill C2, which you and I have talked about, would criminalize the use of cash and expand the surveillance states, et cetera, et cetera. So Bill 2 is very bad legislation.
Yep.
There was so much pushback. There was so much outcry against it coming from all corners and all quarters, and there were so many Canadians who contacted their MPs against Bill C2. What the government actually did is they took out certain sections pertaining to immigration, refugees, and borders, put that into a separate bill, Bill 12. And the really bad, and I haven't looked too closely at Bill 12, but I'm not aware of significant violations of the rights and freedoms of Canadian citizens with Bill 12. So they separated it. While there was a public outcry, there was pushback against it. So the government pulled out the immigration, refugee, border stuff, put it into a separate bill, which will probably get through. Probably the Conservatives will vote for it. That'll pass. The really bad stuff about Bill C2 has now been put on the back burner. Why? Because so many Canadians contacted their MPs. So, I'm glad that the really bad parts of Bill C2 have been put on the back burner. The government's not trying hard to move ahead with that. I'm glad that Canadians contacted their MPs. Had Canadians not done so, we would be in far worse shape today.
Yeah, I've tried to contact MPs and MPPs. I have met brick walls over and over again. So my faith in our system is at an all-time low.
Do you think Canadians should not contact their MPs to tell them to vote against Bill C9, which is going to, if passed, it's going to take us a big step towards becoming like the United Kingdom, where every day there's over 30 people. In the United Kingdom, every day there's over 30 people getting arrested over their tweets. Okay,
yeah. I think that I'm going to be one of the first.
Bring us in that direction.
I know.
So,
I think that I'm going to be one of the first to genuinely answer.
Here's my question.
Yeah,
here's my question.
Yeah.
Should Canadians contact their MP to tell their MP to vote against Bill C9? Should they do that? Yes or no?
The MPs have made abundantly clear that they do not want to hear from us, from me, and from the citizenry. Oh yeah, and I don't think they care. Sorry?
Why does the federal government back down on Bill C2? Why have they put that on the back burner?
I don't think they did back down. They just moved it. And they're trying to pass C12, right? They put the same provisions into C12, right? Is that correct? They put the same
No.
They want to limit cash transactions. I'm sorry, is that not what you said? I thought you said they put it into C12.
No. Bill C2, okay, hear me out. Bill C2, they call it the Strong Borders Act, and there's a section of Bill C2 which talks about immigration, refugee, and borders, okay? Then there's all these other parts that really don't have too much to do with borders, like making cash illegal and cash in amounts of 10,000, and all of these, the Authorized Access to Information Act. There's a whole bunch of bad stuff in Bill C2 that does not pertain to immigration, refugees, and borders. Okay, there's so much outcry against Bill C2 that the government actually took the immigration, refugee, border stuff out of Bill C2 and put it into a new bill, Bill C12. So Bill C12 is only about immigration, refugee, and borders. It's probably going to get passed. The government's pushing ahead on that because they really want that to get through. The other bad stuff in Bill C12, like criminalizing the use of cash and the Authorized Access to Information Act with warrantless searches, the bad stuff, the government has put Bill C2 on the back burner.
So you're
And
saying
that's
it's going to die
a lot
on,
of Canadians.
you're saying that the stuff that was left in C2 will die on paper because they won't pick it
It's
up.
likely to die on paper because Canadians contacted their MPs. So now I'm hearing you say that Canadians, like, you didn't answer the question. I'm saying, should Canadians contact their MP to tell their MP to vote against Bill C9, the Combating Hate Act?
Yeah,
And
well,
you said, well, MPs don't want to hear from their constituents.
yeah,
That doesn't answer the question.
but it
Should
does.
Canadians
But it does,
contact their
though.
MPs about this?
Well, if they feel strongly
Sure.
about they feel strongly about it, sure. But from my experience, when you contact an MP, I sat down with my MP about legalization of marijuana, as I'm a medical marijuana patient, and I've been using marijuana for a long time. So I sat down with my MP, and he was insulting and rude. And this was 2019. This was before I ran for office. So, like, I have called, I have emailed, and not just my MP, not just multiple my MPs, although there was a guy before Lloyd Longfield who, Frank, he was quite nice. But the Liberal MPs, the MPPs that I've had experience with, and I'm not trying to dodge your question, but I've made the case that our government and institutions don't care about the public. And so it would be odd for me to say, yes, you should call your MP or MPP about these bad bills. Of course you should if you feel like that will help. However, my experience has been that when I contact MPs or MPPs, they behave as if I'm inconveniencing them. If I actually want to talk about something that's uncomfortable, like, hey, we should be able to use cash, or we should not be importing people and putting them up in hotels, so on and so forth. Can I talk to you about gender ideology in a school? They don't want to talk to me about things that actually matter. They don't want to hear from me. And so I'm watching things like C9 pass in Australia, pass in England, pass in New Zealand, I think, but maybe they're just talking about it. And so when people say, should we fight against this? It seems like I'm hearing, go and sign this petition. Like, the petitions don't work. Pushing and calling these people and saying, I'm one of many people, it doesn't work.
Canadian Taxpayers Federation, if you were to talk to Scott Henning, he can give you numerous specific examples where a large petition campaign has worked to stop a proposed tax or stopped to do this or that. They've had, it'd be on their website, I'm sure, specific examples where presenting, petitions with 100,000 signatures or 500,000 signatures, whatever, and ministers change their minds and they don't proceed as planned. I have got to be signing off because I've got other commitments that I need to get to today, but I would encourage your listeners to contact your MP and urge them to vote against Bill C9, the Combating Hate Act. It's going to be voted on. If this bill passes, then it's going to move us in the direction of becoming like the United Kingdom.
Or
so
China.
if you care about free speech, contact your MP and urge him or her to vote against Bill C9.
Yep. And before you go, and I appreciate the debate, John, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to be honest with you about my feelings and stuff. So maybe other people have more faith in the institutions, but mine's
It's not about having faith. I don't have faith in
it is.
institutions. I have faith in action that, again, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. You will never hear me spread despair and encourage people to just not engage in the democratic process. You'll never hear me say that because that makes things worse.
Fair enough. Where can people find you and your stuff?
Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, www.jccf, Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, jccf.ca.
Perfect.
And go to our website. We have a free email newsletter if you'd like to be kept informed about our court cases and whatnot.
Yep.
And
perfect.
A good debate today.
Yeah, well, it's always enjoyable. I appreciate a good, lively conversation rather than platitudes. So I appreciate your engagement and your good faith, because it is a debate in good faith. And so I appreciate your time and thank you for